episode number 7.
Sure.
Probably.
I can't keep track. We haven't even done that many. I'm like, oh, it feels like ages.
Well, it's been 1 week since we've recorded an episode, and weeks are very long.
So, yeah, I guess every time we just forget how to record a podcast, so this is how they're all going to start. I hope everyone enjoys it.
That's just part of the feel of this podcast.
If you like the beginning of every podcast you listen to just be like mildly awkward and uncomfortable, this is the place for you.
It will never get better. Even if we still have this podcast 27 years from now.
27. Cool. Well, I mean, I'm ready to just get right into it.
Well,
I'm in like a mood right now, and I'm ready to go. So so we are not apologizing for the topic that we're about to discuss because this is what we want to talk about, and we can do whatever we want.
This is our podcast.
So, I mean, even though we just spoke for a very long time about a particular saga of books and movies, we are going to talk more about not that thing, but more about the part of that thing, which is vampires in general.
Yeah, because when we were talking to Becca about how much she doesn't like vampires, I was just thinking we should talk more about other non-stupid vampires.
Yeah, we have other things to talk about pertaining to vampires that we didn't get to touch on.
Yeah.
And we just want to go there.
Vampire lore in general.
Don't worry,
great.
I don't think it's going to get as weird as the end of the second part of the Twilight one.
This will not be NSFW.
This one's just going to be,
I mean, who knows where we'll go.
2 kids sitting in the living room just asking questions and talking about vampires, a cool creature that we'd like to discuss. So, we're going to do that. Feels really chill. It doesn't sound like a chill topic. Oh, let's talk about vampires today, fellas.
Let's talk about vampires.
Hello, friends. Coming to you live. Maybe not live. Coming to you recorded from the living room of our apartment. It's Vampire Podcast. Let's go.
We don't have a guest. We got a real vampire to guest star on our podcast.
Now it just becomes Interview with the Vampire, the book / movie.
I haven't seen that yet.
We'll have to watch it to complete our vampire research. Is this research?
No, it's introducing Jade to Twilight. But we're not going to talk about Twilight. We might a little bit, but we have a Twilight timer.
Yes.
So if we start talking about Twilight, we will set the timer and it will go off in 90 seconds and then we have to stop.
Yeah, because we decided, it would be just too much for us to force Twilight upon you for not 1, not 2, but 3 podcasts. So if we accidentally go there, I don't think we're intending on going there. Maybe just like a reference here or there. But we don't,
it's like comparing vampire lore, so that it might get thrown in a couple times.
But
if you want us to talk about Twilight more, we could do that.
I'm sure we could, but that's not what this podcast is about. So let's just get right on into the thick of the vampire thicket.
Okay. Let's talk about some other, pop culture vampires.
All right. We can do that.
Yeah, you want to go first?
The first thing that we have on our little notebook list is the Shadowhunters universe, which is from a book series called The Mortal Instruments. Well, there's other series too, but mainly The Mortal Instruments is the first series. And long story, very, very short. It's basically just like an urban fantasy in which there are creatures like vampires, werewolves, fairies, and then these people called Shadowhunters where they just hunt demons and stuff, because there are also demons. And anyway, the vampires in that series are pretty, I'd say, traditional. You have the whole thing where they die and then they're buried, and then they when they're buried, they come back up through the ground, and then they drink human blood, and then they're a vampire. And after that, they can't go out in the sun. They're super pale. They don't age. They have fangs, not all the time, but they come out when they're, they're about to drink blood, or they're nervous, I guess.
In times of heightened emotion.
Vampires have feelings. And if they're a little stressed or heightened emotions, then their fangs come out, and they're really cool visually. Yeah. And I think in the books they're described as really thin, needlepoint, almost barely noticeable. They're not suddenly their teeth just are huge fangs like a saber-toothed tiger or anything like that. They're just like these little needles. But then I'm trying to think of other things. They can like enchant a person. So it's almost a magic, but they can get them to like forget that they were there, or, you know, like they'll go, oh, leave this place, like a Jedi mind trick or whatever.
Yeah, it's a type of...
And they're also really fast and strong.
Can they cross running water?
What? What?
That's a vampire thing. Some vampires
They
can't
cross
running water. Yes.
Kaylee did more research about vampires before this podcast than I did, so I did not know
I didn't do very much research. That was a thing that I knew before. I didn't read this.
I've never known this vampire factoid, but I don't think it ever comes up that they...
I'm pretty sure, like, Simon goes across rivers.
Well, but I don't... What, do they have to, like... Is it if they touch the running water, or they literally
can't
cross it? Well, they're in New York, so I think at one point they go over, like, the Hudson or something.
Yeah.
So I guess it's never brought up, so I guess we can assume that he can.
I think they can.
I think if he couldn't, they would bring it up.
Yeah. Do they have to be invited in?
No, he can go wherever he wants. Oh, but he can't go into, like, hallowed ground. Like, he can't walk into a church, and he also can't say God. Like, he can't say God's name.
Yeah.
Because he's like, quote-unquote damned.
Yeah.
But then we learn later in the books that, like, vampires that are older and have more practice can say God and stuff like that. So I guess it's not a hard and fast rule. They just kind of have to work on it.
It's like as they get older, they
just get used to it being kind of annoying to have to... They're like, oh, it's kind of difficult for me to say God, but I really want to, so I just figured out how to do it. It's not a big deal.
Well, it's kind of like how older vampires get, like, stronger or faster, maybe. Like, the older you are, like, the more practiced you are.
The more powerful they are.
Yeah, the more power.
Well, I know he's kind of a main character, kind of a secondary character, depending on how you like to read it. But the main vampire that we focus on while reading these books is named Simon, and he tries to enchant, I think, his mom or something, and he's not very good at it because he's never done it before. But then there's another vampire, Raphael, and he's super good at it because he's, who knows, I have no idea how old he is. He's probably almost 100 because his sister is still alive.
Yeah, but he's, like, pretty old.
He's pretty old.
And his sister's really old, and she was pretty young when he...
Yeah, so he's pretty up there. So, but he's not, like, as old. He's
not, like, one of the ancients.
If he were alive, he would just be a very old man.
Yeah.
But instead, he's just, I don't know, a young man. But anyway, yeah, I think their skills improve as they, you know, the longer they're a vampire, they get better at these kinds of things. So, but I'd say they're pretty regular vampires.
Yeah, pretty standard vampires. One vampire story that I like is called Vampire Academy. It's kind of dumb in a lot of ways, but I enjoy it. But the vampires, they're not like standard vampires, I would say. But there's two different races of vampires, and the one race is more like vampire. So there's the Moroi, which are like living vampires. They're not created, they're born. So, like, I don't know how the first one became that way. They're
just around.
Not addressed. We don't think about that because that's hard to...
We're not here to poke holes in the world building of these stories.
But they can go out in sunlight. It just kind of makes them weaker. So they choose not to. They usually, like, they go to school at night. Like, it's nocturnal pretty much. But they can go out in the sunlight. They drink human blood, but they don't kill. Like, they have people who are called feeders who volunteer.
That's just a gross word.
Yeah. So they go to where the feeders are and, like, have a little sip and then go and do whatever. It's like the ones who aren't vampires go to the cafeteria and the vampires go to drink some blood. But they're... like, saliva gives off endorphins, so it makes them feel good. So the feeders are basically, like, addicted to it. They also have kind of the magic abilities. They have more magic where each of them specializes in an element and they can control that element to an extent. Some of them have more power than others.
It's like element bending.
Yeah, like some of them who are like fire users can light candles and like make rooms warm, but some of them can like throw fireballs. There's not really a rule about who has more power.
They just have their own style.
Yeah, they specialize in that element, but some of them can do different things with it. And they also can do that like mind control compulsion thing where they like make eye contact with someone and they're like, "You're gonna let me into this room," and they're like,
"Bring me a glass of water," and they go, "Yeah, okay."
Yeah, and some of them are better than others. Like some of them, this is kind of getting into it too much, but instead of having like an element, their specialization is like in spirit, so they can heal and they can have higher levels of compulsion. But it's against the like law kind of to do it because it's rude.
Vampires don't want another vampire compelling them to do something. That's basically how I understood it.
Yeah.
They were just like, "No, we don't want you to use your powers on us. That's not fair because we can't do it, so you're not allowed."
Yeah, well, they're not supposed to use it on humans either, but they don't really care, I guess.
Not a big deal. Humans, we don't care about them.
They are not super strong. They don't have super speed.
Bummer.
Yeah,
That sucks.
it's kind of unfortunate.
Okay, what about the other ones?
Well, so there's the half vampires, which are the children of one Moroi parent and one human parent, and they are a little bit stronger, like than an average human, and definitely stronger than the vampires, and so they're like fighters, and they protect the Moroi from the evil vampires.
The entirely, completely bad vampires.
The evil vampires are called Strigoi. Well, they used to be the Moroi, the good vampires, but then you become one of the bad vampires by completely draining a human of blood, because that's like a horrible act, and so to do that, it just like turns them like evil.
It doesn't make much sense to me.
I know.
But, okay.
It's been a while since I've read it, so I don't remember.
No, I just didn't remember that little fact. Like, they had to kill somebody in order to do that, but it's like a transformation. Like, they just are gross after that.
Yeah, I don't know how the draining someone of blood would then trigger something to change in you. Like, how would your body know that?
That would just be like if we all ate, everybody eats pasta, but if you eat a whole box of pasta by yourself, like you finish the box, you become a monster. Like this thing, they just need blood for nourishment, so they're like, yeah, I just like take a sip from a person with their consent, and then I go on my merry way, and then this other person is like, no, I'm gonna drink all their blood. But you'd think they'd just be super full, but instead they just become horrible.
Well, that's one way to turn into them. Another way is you can be turned if one of them drains you of blood and then feeds you their blood, which is a way that I've heard in other lore about turning into vampires, where like they drink from you and then feed you their blood. That's like a way to turn into a vampire.
Yeah.
But when you become one of the Strigoi, their minds just like become kind of warped and twisted. Like they become inherently evil. They're not like the same person that they were, and they're fast and strong, and they can't go out in sunlight. They will like turn to ash in sunlight.
So you get the perks. You get like strong, fast, and then you get the negatives, which is mindless, violent hunger for blood and killing people, and you can't go out in the sun anymore. It's a give and a take.
And they have stronger powers of like compulsion, so they have an easier time doing that to other people, and they prefer to drink the blood of the Moroi, the good vampires, because like it tastes better. So that's why they target them more than humans, even though humans are easier targets because humans don't have like these half vampires protecting them. But that's basically how those vampire lores go. They're not very typical vampires.
Yeah, those are very unique.
The Moroi are different. The Strigoi are kind of more of that typical vampire, what you would expect. And they were inspired by like an original vampire myth. Like in Romania, vampires were called strigoi. Like, I heard that from the author, and then when I was looking up vampires for fun, we were talking about this podcast, it talked about that. How that's...
Yeah, and that was cool. I think I was washing the dishes, and you just read, like, strigoi, and I was like, oh, that's the name of the things from that thing.
Yeah. There's also a movie about Vampire Academy, but it's really bad.
Gosh,
It's really
highly
bad.
recommend. I've never read the books. Well, I think I read the first one once, and then I just never read the other ones for whatever reason. But I did watch the movie, and I've seen it now several times, and it's just, horrendously bad, but so much fun.
It's so funny.
Oh, it's horrible. I want to watch it right now. It's the worst.
There's a lot more, like, lore, and they have, like, a big world building. Like, there's a vampire queen and, like,
yeah, but
royal
that doesn't have
families.
anything to do with, like, vampires themselves.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean to be a vampire? So let's talk a little bit more about that. Like, let's go back to the beginning. The vampire predecessor. Or, like, the one that everybody really knows about, which is Dracula, right?
We don't know anything about Dracula.
We don't, and we still don't, and we should have just, like, looked up some stuff, but we didn't.
No, we wrote in a notebook. Do we know anything about Dracula? The answer was, and still is,
no.
we know nothing about Dracula.
But, well, you know, he's just used a lot, like, as an illusion in literary circles and stuff. Like, someone could be like,
the vampire.
Well, he's, like, the vampire. Like, if someone asked you who was the first vampire, I'd probably just go, oh, it's Dracula. Like, he's the first, I don't know, the most well-known one in literature other than, you know, our dear friend, Edward Cullen.
Okay.
Well, you have to include him, though, because with the popularity of Twilight, we can't ignore the fact that now he's, like, on the list of vampires that people know.
I guess, but
Kaylee is
dumb.
opening the Twilight timer. She
I
started
think
it.
we're done talking about it, though.
I think we could be done. You made me nervous. You, like, started opening your phone, and I was like, no, she's gonna start the Twilight timer, and then I can't keep going.
But Dracula, I think, does have some characteristics that I would say are pretty base vampire characteristics. Like, he's got fangs.
He's pale.
Yeah. He drinks blood.
He lives in a big, scary castle. Doesn't he sleep
Does he
in a
live?
coffin?
I think.
We don't actually know. We could just talk about, like, what we think a traditional, like, blank slate vampire would be.
Does Dracula live in Transylvania?
I think so.
Let's just talk about Hotel Transylvania.
No, please don't.
He can turn into a bat.
Yes.
But that's not something that I would attribute to vampires in general. Like, that's a Dracula thing, but, like, if vampires existed right now, I don't think that I would assume that they would turn into bats.
Really? I mean, I think it's just a fun thing. You know, you can either turn into a bat or they can do some kind of, like, hovering flight thing. Ooh, another thing, they can't see themselves in reflections.
In mirrors.
Which is, I don't know why. Like, where did that come from?
Can they in Shadowhunters?
Yeah, they can see themselves.
Yeah.
That's not a problem at all. But
yeah,
there are some interesting aspects to being a vampire. Okay, turning into a bat is just plain weird. Like, why would that be a thing?
I was reading something.
Because vampire bats drink blood, but they're called vampire bats.
Vampire bats.
But, like, vampires had to have come first in order to call the bats vampire bats. Unless that's, like, some kind of a root word.
I don't know.
We don't know enough to be talking about this. Well,
because they weren't always called vampires. Because, like, they were originally... Well...
We don't know if that was the first one ever.
No. I read the Wikipedia page of the man who was the first recorded vampire in existence.
Oh, yeah, and the guy was like, back, be gone, vampire, away from here. And then they, like, killed him.
Yeah.
We don't know enough about this.
No, okay.
We just swerve right away from that because we don't have enough knowledge.
So what are the base pieces of vampire lore?
They're pale. They can't go out in the sun. They're either, like, you know, if they go out in the sun, they get, like, crispy.
Yeah.
Or they just, like, plain turn to ash.
Like, it hurts or it literally just kills them.
They can turn into a bat. Maybe.
Sometimes they can't running water.
They can't see their reflections.
Yeah, they have fangs. Sometimes they're always there. Sometimes they just fangs. Come out. Which, when I was rereading Twilight, they don't have fangs.
They just have regular teeth.
So they just bite into animals.
Yeah.
Just with their regular teeth, no fangs.
I think in Shadowhunters, I haven't read that in a while, but I remember, they describe the fangs as like these really thin things, and it's almost like they're needles, so the blood like gets sucked up into the fangs. Whereas
like
I think, like a straw, like a really gross anatomical straw. But I think in Twilight, it's more like they bite them and they just like swallow the blood, which is gross.
Yeah. In Vampire Academy, they have fangs all the time.
But how do they like consume the blood?
They're not straws.
They're not straw teeth? Bummer. Oh, darn.
I don't think so.
Like, that's, okay, so basically, but the teeth are just, like, for the puncture marks. Because, the stereotypical vampire bite is, like, just 2 puncture marks from, like, your sharpest 2 teeth, which is where they'd have the fangs.
Yeah.
But in Twilight, it's just, like, a bite mark from a regular person.
Yeah, and the fangs help carry the saliva with the endorphins in it, like, into the wound. Ooh. So that's... If it was just your entire mouth, I don't know.
We don't know.
I like vampires with fangs better.
The fangs are just really cool visually.
Yeah.
It's just fun. Well, maybe that's where the bat thing comes from, because, like, bat teeth bite. Well, they don't have, like, teeth, do they?
I don't know anything about bats.
I don't know. Bats, I don't know. But, like, Dracula wears his big old cape cloak thing that he can pull over his mouth and do, like, the... like, hello, welcome to my castle. It's me, Count Dracula. I could just speak like that for the whole rest of this podcast. Okay. Would you enjoy?
Maybe not.
I won't.
Sometimes vampires have to be invited into places.
Ooh, yes.
Which I think is cool.
It just creates a lot of issues for the vampires.
Yeah, because otherwise vampires are these crazy powerful things that just, like, kill you, can do whatever, because they have super strength and, like, speed and usually pretty good tracking ability, because they can usually smell pretty good,
great
too.
Senses.
So they can just, like, kill you, even in your own home. But if they can't come in without being invited, then you're like, sucks. I'm just, like, standing 5 feet away from you, but you can't get to me.
Yeah. Oh, another thing I just thought of was, like, crucifixes.
Yeah.
As a way to ward off a vampire, and then also like wooden stakes, which is how you kill them. I think that's a thing that they do in Buffy, right? Like Buffy has wooden stakes.
I think so.
And
I don't
she
know
like
much about
stakes
that either.
she like stakes vampires.
Yeah, in Vampire Academy there are 3 ways to kill the Strigoi: stake to the heart, cut off their head, or burn them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would kill just about anything.
Well, yes. But, like, they can't be killed any other way.
The crucifix thing, though, is another, or, like, holy water.
Yeah, or...
Where, like you said, like, they, they're these killing machines, but here you are armed with, like, a cross necklace, a sharp stick, and some water, and you're like, back off, vampire!
Yeah, and holy ground, too. Sometimes they can't enter holy ground.
Yeah.
Like...
So, if you're just, like, a pastor, and you, like, live in a house that's, like, on the church property, like, a vampire just can't even come anywhere near you.
Yeah. Or there's, like, a vampire terrorizing the town.
Just all
back
in the church.
In the 1800s. Everyone just, like...
Back in the day.
Goes to the church.
Yeah, but I mean, like, vampires could just wait. They could just wait you out and just hang outside. Like,
yeah, you have to eat. Another thing, garlic.
Oh, God. Yeah, what's up with that?
Sometimes... garlic is not good for them.
Vampires just can't enjoy one of the best seasonings.
They can't eat garlic bread.
Sucks. Well, they can't... Well, sometimes they can't eat, like, regular food.
Yeah, true.
They only eat blood. Well, they don't eat it. They only drink blood.
Yeah, sometimes they, like, can eat food, but they don't necessarily need to.
Yeah. I think that's about... I can't think of anything else about vampires.
No, I think we've...
That's a pretty good... But, like, why? It's so interesting.
But, and it's not like all vampires are always like this. They change. Stories vary.
And, like, each kind of vampire is slightly different. So it's just really interesting to have this one creature but they're all a little bit weird. Like most vampires, like you said, don't turn into bats. That's just like a one-time thing.
Yeah, well, I was reading something that kind of said maybe Dracula was just like a master of illusion. Like, he could make people believe things. So even if he didn't necessarily turn into a bat, he could make people think he turned into a bat. Or it could be like some vampires have special powers, and his just happened to be that he could turn into a bat.
Okay, but if he did have illusion powers, he could make them see anything that he wanted. So either Dracula is just like really on brand, and he decided one day, he's like, I'm going to make everyone see a bat when I try to make my escape every single time. I'm never going to pick anything else. This is what I've chosen. Or, yeah, he just like, that's the only thing he knows how to do.
Yeah.
He's like, I've got these illusion powers, but really I've only been able to nail down like a really good, believable bat. I'd like to try something a lot cooler, maybe a tiger or, I don't know, a black bear, but I don't know. I think a bat's just like really fitting, and you know, it's small, it's easy for me to do. People are scared of them. I think I'm just going to stick with a bat. And they're like, Dracula, hey, maybe try... You know, you could do so many other things with your illusion magic. You know, you could make yourself look not like a vampire so people just let you in.
Oh, we said most other vampires don't turn into bats. Hotel Transylvania, they turn into bats.
Does Hotel Transylvania count as a real, like, part of vampire
they're vampires.
lore? No, okay, because isn't it just like Adam Sandler, which, first of all,
I don't
what
know
a joke.
who plays them.
I'm pretty sure it's Adam Sandler. So that's stupid.
I know the girl's name is Mavis.
And he's literally just almost Dracula. Like, his voice, he's like, I don't say
blah, blah, blah,
it's
blah.
me, I'm not Dracula. It's me, Adam Sandler, and I'm doing a Dracula voice. And that's like that's not...
No, his father is Dracula or something.
Okay, so he's basically just
Okay,
Dracula.
if you didn't think that one counted, then you're not really gonna like my second point
I
either. Vampirina.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a kid's show.
No.
She's a ballerina, I guess. But she's a vampire. It's called Vampirina. They can turn into bats.
Why would her being a ballerina, why couldn't she just be a ballerina? She doesn't have to be a vampire.
No, she's a vampire. She's from Transylvania, but she moves to Pennsylvania. And then she misses her home in Transylvania. But she can turn into bats.
Bats.
No.
She turns into so many bats.
Her and her family, they can turn into bats. But when they're bats, sometimes they have like human heads, but like bat bodies. So it looks really weird.
That sounds horrific.
But sometimes
this is a show for
they
children.
look like regular bats. I don't know. I mean, it's animated, so it doesn't look like
yuck.
a real bat with a real human head.
Oh, no. No, I don't think... Okay, those to me are just... They didn't create an entirely new kind of vampire.
Yeah, see, those things where they're trying to play off of established vampire stereotypes, they can turn to bats. But most stories where they're like, here are my vampires, they still share some of these vampire characteristics, but
yeah, I think
the bat thing.
I think
is
the
usually
part
not
that
there.
that like authors or storytellers try to go for is like someone that is identifiably a vampire. Like, you could look at them and you could read about them and go, that is a vampire, but there are different things that like change or they can tweak a little bit.
Yeah.
Like in the Shadowhunters universe, Simon becomes what they call a daylighter, where he like can go out in the sunlight and he's unaffected, and it's like a rare thing, but he can do it. And I mean, personally, I just think it's a plot thing where they go, oh, well, it's hard for me to... He can't participate in the story if he can't go outside during the day, so I'm just going to, like, make him go outside. But you can do that as an author. You can create a reason why a vampire who previously couldn't go out during the day can suddenly just, like, go waltzing around New York City all in the daylight.
So, my question is, if you were to write a vampire story, what characteristics would your vampires have?
I'm a really big fan of having to be invited in.
I really like that, depending on the story you're telling.
I think it would, well, I don't know, I like vampires where, like, they have to have blood and it's like this constant need, like almost uncontrollably so. So to me, a vampire that I think I would like writing is one that has this desperate need for blood, but, you know, they don't necessarily like it, but they've just kind of accepted it as something that they have to deal with. So they have to find these ways to, like, get into places, to get to people, but they have to be invited in. And I think, well, earlier, like, when we weren't recording this, we were talking a little bit about where a vampire would have to be invited. Like, what is it, just homes? Or is it, like, any place where a person, like, holds residence? Like, would a vampire have to be invited into, like, I don't know, like a doctor's office?
Well, people don't live in the doctor's office.
But is that what you think, that it's only places where people live?
Yeah.
Or is it just, like, a place that people inhabit?
I think they can get into communal buildings, but they can't get into your house.
What if the building is, like, owned by one person?
They don't live there.
Like,
my doctor doesn't sleep at the doctor's office.
Well, but they, like, so you think it's just homes?
I think so.
I still think it'd be interesting, though, because then if the vampire, like, had, you know, they're a vampire, but they're still, you know, they have a social life and all that, and so they have to go places, but they have to be invited in, but they have to play it off as something that's not a big deal. Oh, I'm just really polite, I just have good manners. Oh, please invite me in.
That's why a lot of vampires go to, like, clubs and bars, because they can get into there, because people don't live there, and
vampires love the nightlife.
Yeah, because people are there at night, and because, like, people are drunk or high or whatever, so they're easier to pick off.
Ugh, I don't know. I oscillate between loving a vampire that's just, like, a super duper bloodthirsty, horrific monster versus a vampire that was, you know, they were a person that was turned, and they don't necessarily like being this way, but they are, and so they just kind of have to deal with it. So basically a vampire with, like, no feelings versus a vampire with lots of feelings. I like both kinds.
I mean, I think it really depends on the story that you'd be trying to tell.
Yeah.
Because there are some times where I like the having to be invited in because it's cool for the story.
Spooky.
But in general, I wouldn't attribute that as something that is necessary in a vampire in, like, any particular story. Like, I think something about the daytime is necessary.
Yeah.
Whether you can't go out during the day at all, or
I think
you choose not to because it's like a little bit painful, or like it makes you weak, or you just don't like it. And drinking blood is definitely a necessity for a vampire, but do they have to kill?
I think we just keep saying, like, well, it depends on the story that you're telling. So if I wanted, like, a murderous vampire, I'd probably just have them. You're making so many couch noises.
I'm sorry, my foot fell asleep. I can't do this anymore.
Couch noises. Okay, so I think if you wanted a murderous vampire, then I think that they would lack control and they would have to kill the person that they were feeding off of. But if you had a vampire that was just a person with vampirism, then I would just have them, like, drink from a person, and then that was it, and they'd be fine.
I really like the idea of a vampire that's born, not turned. I don't know exactly how it would work in all cases, but I think that's a cool story idea where you just are a vampire.
I like it better when they're turned. I love a good monster. And I like it when they don't like being a vampire. I want that character to suffer. And so I would want them to have as many, like, hindrances to living normally. So having to be invited in, they can't go out in the sun. I don't know. Like, because you can't have a vampire with all of these pluses. Like, they're fast, they're strong, they have great senses. And that you can't have that and give them no negative side effects. You know, you have to have that balance of, otherwise it would just be great and everyone would want to be a vampire.
Well, yes.
If you were like, yeah, you can be strong, you're fast, you don't age, everything's just great for you, you'd be like, okay, cool, sounds great, sign me up. But you go, okay, well, never mind, you have to be invited everywhere that you go, you have this, like, unending thirst for blood, and you might kill people a lot accidentally or on purpose, if that's your thing.
Yeah. Well, also, being immortal wouldn't necessarily be a plus, depending on sort of where you're at.
Say more.
Like, I wouldn't want to be mortal.
Wait, what? Did you say mortal or immortal?
Immortal. I don't want to be immortal. That would be boring. I don't want to live forever.
That would be boring.
That's too long. Like, life's already pretty long.
Immortal is too long.
That's, like, good.
Okay, but you'd get to see so much.
And like...
If I had some good friends and family, I'd be fine.
If we were all vampires?
Yeah. Like, if you were a vampire that was born...
See, if you were born a vampire, that would be different. Because then that would always be the expectation. But if you were, like, 25 and you were turned into a vampire, then you're like...
Yeah, it'd be like you've been condemned to live forever versus, like, blessed with immortality.
Yeah.
Depending on how you viewed it.
Yeah.
But if you were born a vampire, you still didn't, like, choose to be born. You just are.
Yeah, okay, yeah, but nobody chose to be born.
But, I mean, they might not like it at certain points. Like, what if a person was born a vampire? Here's a story for you. You're born a vampire.
Okay.
And you fall in love with a mortal, and you realize, like, no matter what,
no, I don't like
they'll
that
die.
Well...
No, but, like,
then
let's say
just
in this universe,
too.
then, like, you can't, like, vampires aren't turned. They're just born. Oh. So there's no chance of having, like, an immortal love between these two characters. You don't like that story?
No, I don't like that. That's too sad. I like...
Nothing like a good,
you could
sad
be born, but
story.
you could also be made.
Then we'd all have too many vampires, I think. Like, if you could be born a vampire and... all the regular mortal people were like, hey, that doesn't seem so bad. Let's just all be vampires.
Okay, but in none of these stories does everyone just know that vampires exist.
Let's say they do.
Well, that'd be completely different. Well, then why couldn't we just have a race of vampires?
You could.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Vampire Academy universe, like, there are humans that know about these vampires and, like, have children with them, right?
Yes.
Because then these, like, half-vampire kids go off to vampire school to save the vampires for their whole not-vampire life. That's basically what the books are about. It's like, well, I'm What's-Her-Face, and I'm a half-vampire, and my job is to go to school to learn how to protect these vampires because they're so weak and boring, and...
The living vampires age and die. They're not immortal.
Yeah, but they need protection. But they also, like, they're, like, getting it on with human beings.
Yes.
And then children go to school, so that means the parents know where these kids are going.
Yes.
Because they could be like, oh, you're going to high school? And they're like, no, I'm not going to high school. I'm going to Vampire Protection Squad training school. Like,
well, they can also... That used to happen when vampires mingled more with humans, I think... And then now they don't as much anymore because the half vampires can also be created by a vampire and a half vampire having a kid.
What? That doesn't make any sense. They'd be like 3/4 vampire.
Okay, well, you talk about them as vampire and half vampire, but like the Moroi and the Dompier, like when they have a kid together, their kid is going to be genetically the Dompier, not.
There's like some human in there still. So.
Yeah. If not both parents are vampires, then the kid won't be.
Great. You never told them what a Dompier meant. You just, like, threw that into your last sentence.
Well,
no
we were talking about... I thought it made sense in the context.
No, you only mentioned Moroi and Strigoi, and you were like, oh, also Dompiers.
I don't think the titles are important, because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the lore.
Those are the half vampires.
See, I said the exact same sentence as vampire and half vampire, and then I said Moroi and Dompier, so I thought that it would be pretty self-explanatory what those terms would mean.
You can't just throw those terms in from several minutes ago and expect everyone to remember. I could barely remember Moroi, like, and I started a sentence intending to use that word, and I went, oh, shoot, if I can't remember this, then this sentence is over. I'll just have to stop.
Okay.
But I didn't. Okay, so what other things do you like about vampires if you were gonna build your own vampire?
They drink human blood, but they don't kill. I'm trying to remember the last time I wrote a vampire story, which wasn't recently.
I've never written a vampire story.
They have the vampire, like, super traits where, like, they're kind of, like, they're enhanced humans. Like, they're stronger than humans. They're really fast. Well,
the vampires in Twilight are too fast.
Yeah. See, what I'm thinking is faster than a human. Like, could beat humans in a race, but not, like, Twilight
so fast
or,
that
like,
you can't see them move.
Not... They're slightly enhanced, but not, like, Dash from The Incredibles. Not, like, really fast.
Go along, vampire.
Like, stronger than a human, but not, like, Mr. Incredible strong, you know?
Yeah, so just, like, I like enhanced.
Yeah.
You know, they're a little bit better than the average person.
Like, they can smell better. Their senses are enhanced, but not, like, super powered.
Yeah. Because, I mean, bringing it back to Twilight real quick, those vampires are, like, unstoppable.
Yeah.
Like, you can't stop them as a human being.
Yeah, because I really like vampire hunters as a thing.
Yeah.
Those are
like, that's cool, but you can't have a vampire hunter. Like,
you can't beat the vampires.
I think, you know, human beings, we like to think that we're the absolute shit. Like, we're the top of the food chain. We're like, we should be able to destroy anything. And then some people are like, well, if there were vampires, they would then be the top of the food chain because they feed on humans. But, you know, I like to think that human beings should have a chance to at least try to fight back.
Yeah, like an average human being couldn't fight off a vampire. I certainly couldn't.
You could try, like, if you had the tools. Like, if you
like,
had
if I punched a vampire in the face, it wouldn't be like punching granite. It'd be like a strong human face.
Yeah, like, it doesn't really hurt them, but at least I tried. Or if I had some holy water, I could be like, watch out, I've got holy water.
Yeah.
And they'd be a little deterred.
And if you train specifically to fight vampires, then you'd be pretty good at it. Like, as long as you know what to expect and you train for that.
Like that.
It's something that you could do.
It has to be kind of fair. You know, if you have these monsters that are just out and about, you have to have some ability to stop them. That's why I like it when they have weaknesses, because that's just another thing that keeps them from being like these killing machines that just, there's no point to them being around other than just to kill stuff.
Yeah. I like they choose to be nocturnal more than they have to. Like, they can go out in the sunlight, but it's just not comfortable.
I like where it's just kind of like, oh, I'm sensitive to the sunlight. Like, I have a skin condition.
If I were to, like, write vampire fiction, it'd be more, they're basically human, just, like, a little bit different. And also they drink blood. But they're not, like...
They're, like, pretty much human,
but they're not, like, a completely different race where they're, like, superpowered, can't go out in the sunlight at all, or they will die. But, like we said, that is still an interesting story, but, like, it just depends on what story you're telling.
I either like the story that you're talking about, or just, like, super duper creature of the night, like, tries to sneak into your house, but they have to be invited in. Like, you know, you open your door because you hear something outside, and you, like, peek through your screen door, and suddenly there's just, like, this figure standing on the porch. In the shadow. Like, that's scary.
The having to be invited in combined with, like, a compulsion type power would be interesting too, because then they could compel you to, like, invite them in.
No, but the person maybe could fight it off, like the compulsion.
Yeah, like, some people are stronger at fighting it off, or, like, just block your eyes, because I like if they have to, like, make eye contact to do it.
Yeah. Ooh, that would be so scary if, like, you open the door and this person's like, you should let me in.
You're like,
and they go,
nope.
Ooh, but, like,
but I don't want to. It's like
I'm in my pajamas and it's cold, and so they just kind of, like, slowly start to close the door, and the vampire's like, no, wait, please let me in. Please, I need my phone died. Do you have an iPhone charger I can borrow? And they're like, yeah. And they go, you should let me in to borrow your iPhone charger. And they go, no, I can just give it to you. Like, it's right here in the junk drawer. And they just start to hand it across the threshold of the door, and the vampire just goes, oh, shoot.
As soon as your hand crosses the threshold, the vampire can grab it.
No, they just really do need the phone charger.
Just, like, toss the phone charger.
Yeah.
Thanks, bye.
Yeah, I like the idea of the compulsion not being absolute. Like, it's just a suggestion.
Yeah, it's like the Imperious Curse, where, like, you can fight it off, but
it might be really hard.
Some people are better at fighting it off than others. And if you practice at it, kind of, or if it's something that you would not do ever, then it's easier to fight off because you're like, no. But if it's something simple, like, bring me a glass of water, you're like, all right, sure.
That seems pretty nice. Ooh, yeah, but then you could bring in the vampire hunters, because I'm sure if you're fighting a vampire, they would probably try to compel you to stop.
Yeah.
So they'd have to practice. How would you practice being compelled? What, did they, like, kidnap a vampire and, like, get them to do it?
Maybe, just, like, strengthening your mind more, like, I don't know if practice is the right word.
I'm sure you'd have to find some way.
But then, combined with stronger vampires have better compulsion powers, like, it keeps kind of being a back and forth where, like, I'm pretty good at resisting, but he is a stronger vampire that is better at compelling, so then you have to be even better.
The struggle, man. I'm sure being a vampire hunter doesn't sound like a very good career to have if you want to live a long life.
Yeah, probably not. But they're really cool.
Vampires or vampire hunters? Both. I'm answering for you. Well, let's just, like, get to this last question that we had. Would you be a vampire? That's a pretty heavy question for you.
Well, it depends on what vampires
Given what we've talked about, well, we can't possibly know. Have you met a vampire
in general,
before?
Would I be a vampire? I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to live
Silent
forever,
contemplation.
though. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be immortal.
It would be pretty lonely.
Yeah, if we were both vampires.
Welcome to our never-ending podcast.
I listened to a podcast that was just vampires.
They're just, like, talking about things that they go through.
Like, it's normal stuff, but sometimes they're like,
hey, I was at Aldi the other day.
Drink some bad blood.
I was at Aldi the other day, and I was getting stuff to make pizza.
Blood sausage.
And I grabbed some green pepper and stuff, because I was having my mortal friends come over, so I was going to make them some food, right? And I went down to grab some onions, but I accidentally touched a clove of garlic, and now I've got this stupid rash on my hand. And I don't know, like, do you think I should put some, like, cortisone cream on it? Or, no, I can't go to a doctor.
Vampire doctor.
A vampire doctor. No, but just, I want 2 vampire friends talking about just, like, going about their day-to-day life. I don't know, maybe they work in an office building.
Our podcast may eventually turn into that, depending on just where our life takes us.
I don't know. Yeah, that's such a hard question, though. Like, would you be a vampire? Because on the one hand, I'd go, yeah, I wouldn't mind just being this age forever and being, like, faster and stronger, and I wouldn't get tired. That's a big, big bullet point for me, is, like, not being tired, if that's how...
Well, yeah, if they don't have to sleep, because sometimes they do.
Well, sometimes they do.
Because, okay, when we were talking about, like, in the Twilight universe, if you were Bella or whatever, someone, would you be a vampire? I was like, yeah.
Yeah. Because she's, like, got friends. Like, she made friends with them before she was a vampire.
Yeah, she's got cool vampire friends.
And now, well, also, she's just, like, found the love of her life. And they've got this big old happy family. So why not be a vampire? And also, she'll never have human blood. Like, she'll just already be a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So she's got, like, the best of every part of being a vampire. Like, one, she never had that, like, murderous newborn stage.
Yeah. I would definitely be a vampire
got family
in that situation.
And friends. And she's just, like, never gonna have a hard time.
And her other friend, who's not a vampire, is also, like, immortal.
Sure.
Kind of. But even though I said I would hate her, whatever.
We can't go there.
Okay.
The Twilight timer is counting down. We're at 30 seconds.
We're at 30 seconds. Okay, Twilight over.
The Twilight timer has stopped. You thought we weren't going to actually do that, but we did. I bet you thought we were joking about having a Twilight timer. No, we were serious. This is a vampire podcast, not a Twilight podcast.
Wow. So... I would maybe be a vampire.
Yeah,
I think vampires are cool.
You know, maybe if they gave me a pamphlet and I could think about it for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Mull it over, sleep on it.
Here's the pamphlet. If you like what you see, Meet me
Knock,
behind
knock.
the Walmart at
Please.
3 a.m. Saturday
Walmart.
evening.
Knock, knock, please let me in. No, I don't think I will. You look like a vampire. Well, you're right. And I'm here today to tell you about the possibility of becoming a vampire. Did
I'm
you
here today.
know?
Have you heard the good news? I'm here today to spread the word of our Lord and Savior, Dracula.
Dracula. He's still around today.
Our Father, who are in Transylvania.
No, thank you. Please stop. I'm not a fan. But yeah, if they were like, here's what would happen if you became a vampire. Like, you know, if there was a support system for me.
Like if vampires became public and they were like, hey, we exist. If you want to be a vampire, that's fine. Here's what we're about.
Submit an application and we'll get back to you within 3 to 5 business days.
Yeah, someone will show up at your door. Invite them in or
because
don't.
they probably have to control the number of vampires. Because otherwise you'd run out of people.
Yeah, if you need people
then there'd be no blood
to drink from. That would be a weird sort of society where like there's enough vampires that like every person has to be like vampire.
But if vampires, if they live forever, right? If they do in this situation, vampires live forever. So at the time that the vampires like announce themselves to the world, and the government goes, okay, you can make some more vampires, but there's a cap on them, a strict maximum number of vampires at any time. But if they don't die, then they can't make any more new vampires.
They would die, presumably by some means.
Well, why? If the vampires aren't doing anything, there'd be no reason for them to be killed. So if in this universe, you'd have to create some reason for the vampires to be killed, unless whoever was in control here just said, okay, if you're a vampire now, you live for, let's say, I don't know, 100 years, 200 years.
And then
we'll kill you. And then we'll create more vampires. So that we got like a cycle going on here. Where there's like multiple generations of human beings and only like one generation of vampires. That would be really interesting, actually.
Okay, Chris and I are going to go write a novel now.
Yeah, we'll be back in, I don't know, maybe a year.
Yeah.
Sound good?
We got a bit deep into that story.
We gotta go world build.
Don't know how to come back from that.
And I think we can just be done.
Yeah, I think we're good.
I think we'll just leave you with that. I don't know, sit down with your friends and family and just ask them about like what characteristics of vampires they like the best.
Yeah, discussion topic with your roommates at dinner.
Your homework is to write a 1 to 2 page paper on whether or not you would become a vampire and the pros and cons of said transformation.
Yeah, fold it into a paper airplane, throw it into the abyss, and
we'll get it.
We'll find it.
That sounds good. Perfect. I love communicating with fans. Oh my gosh. Okay, that was fun.
My mind isn't doing this stuff anymore.
Okay, well, does the P stand for, P stands for... Paranormal. Sure, the P certainly does stand for that. Thank you. It also stands for podcast. Okay,
yeah.
That's all for now. Bye-bye.